Okay, this is part 2 of the screencast on the Blessed Damozel by Dante Rossetti. And we are on stanza 5, was kind of where we left off there, after we had heard from the male voice, the male that's left behind on earth, there, who was kind of outside daydreaming and about his feeling like he could touch his lover's hair, that she was so close, but that was not the case. And so then we have, in stanza 5, it says, it was the rampart of God's house that she was standing on by God, built over the sheer depth, the which is space begun, so high that looking downward thence she could scarce see the sun. It lies in heaven across the flood of ether as a bridge beneath the tides of day and night, and with flame and darkness ridge the void as low as where this earth spins, like a fretful midge. So the distance between them is actually is much greater than either one of them can fathom. For her, heaven is so far above that she can't even see the sun. Like, from where she's looking, she's bending over, she's leaning over the railing and trying to see to earth where her lover is, but she can't even see the sun from where she is because she's so high above it. And in between them, there is a flood of ether that heaven is kind of built on, and ether being kind of like the clouds, and ether is actually, it's like kind of an anesthetist tool that you use to put somebody to put somebody to sleep. You put them in the ether, so like a dreamlike state, kind of wake, kind of half awake, half asleep kind of thing. And so there's this body of ether that separates them, in addition to the physical distance, that kind of, it's a different world. She's in a different world than he is, essentially, that she cannot, kind of get out of. But she's not alone. Around her, lovers newly met, mid deathless love's acclaim, spoke evermore amongst themselves their heart-remembered names, and the souls mounting up to God went by her like thin flame. So other people are all around her. They've been reunited with the people that they've lost, these lovers. Many of them have been separated for a long time, but their hearts recognize one another as their heart remembered names. They remember one another, and they join together, and arm in arm they travel together up to God. And she's not lucky like that, because her lover is still on earth, and she can't be joined together, and almost the unfairness of this whole situation. And still she bowed herself and stooped out of the circling charm, until her bosom must have made the bar she leaned on warm, and the lilies lay as if asleep along her bended arm. And from the fixed place of heaven she saw time like a pulse shake fierce through all the worlds. Her gaze still strove within the gulf to pierce its path, and now she spoke as when the stars sang in their spheres. The sun was gone now. The curled moon was like a little feather fluttering far down the gulf, and now she spoke through the still weather. Her voice was like the voice of the stars had when they sang together. So she's stuck there. She can't leave, and she's depressed by the situation that she finds herself in. This is heaven. She should be able to find some kind of eternal happiness, but it's impossible for her to be able to do that without her lover at her side. And her body is deflated and exhausted. She's literally leaning or stooping or bowing over this railing for so long that she's made the place warm. So like she hasn't left this spot. And she's stuck. She can't go forward. She can't be reunited. And time on earth, as she's watching, time on earth is moving forward fiercely. Everybody's aging on earth. The time hasn't stopped, but for her, time is frozen. And we see that she begins to speak. We're not privy to what she is saying, only the fact that it sounds like the stars are singing. And so then we switch back to the male on earth. Ah, sweet, even now in that bird's song, strove not her accents there, fain to be hearkened. When those bells possessed the midday air, strove not her steps to reach my side down all the echoing stair. He can hear her. It actually comes to him in in a song. We don't know what she's saying, but the lover on earth seems to be able to understand the song, like the song of a bird, is what he says. And so it makes him think of their time together, the sweet time that they spent together. Back to her. I wish that he were come to me, for he will come, she said. Have I not prayed in heaven, on earth? Lord, Lord, has he not prayed? Are not two prayers a perfect strength? And shall I feel afraid? When round his head the aureole clings, and he is clothed in white, I'll take his hand and go with him to the deep wells of light. As unto a stream we will step down and bathe God there in sight. She wants him to come. She wants him to come to her. She believes that he will come. And she knows that that's the case because she's prayed for it. He's prayed for it, for them to be together. And the situation is, is this not enough? Is praying for it, for them to be reunited. What else can I do, God? Like, what else can I possibly do for us to be reunited? And then she kind of launches into this fantasy in stanza 13 of what things are going to be like when he dies and he's finally able to join her. His head is going to be ringed with an aureole or a halo. He's going to be dressed in white. She's going to take his hand. They're going to go, just like the other lovers that have already passed, they're going to go hand in hand to heaven, and they will be at the mercy of God. They'll go step into the deep wells of light, into God's presence, and bathe there in God's sight. We too will stand beside that shrine occult, withheld, untrod, whose lamps are stirred continually with prayer sent up to God, and see our old prayers granted melt each like a little cloud. We too will lie in the shadow of that living mystic tree, within whose secret growth the dove is sometimes felt to be, while every leaf that his plumes to touch saith his name audibly. And I myself will teach to him, I myself lying so, the songs I sing here, which his voice shall pause in, hushed and slow, and find some knowledge at each pause, or some new thing to know. So she's talking about when they're there, still continuing on this little fantasy that, they're gonna be hidden away there, where no one can find them, no one can bother them, where there is much light, there's much prayer. They will continue to pray for God and thank him for granting their request to be together. They'll lie underneath the mystic tree that grows in God's house, the tree of life. And everything about them is going to be filled with light and touched with God's divinity. And she will take it upon herself to teach him all the songs that they sing in heaven and make sure that they can get the parts just right. And so that he will also be able to worship as she does. They can do that together. Back to our guy on earth, he says, alas, we too, thou sayest. Yea, one wast thou with me that once of old, but shall God lift to endless unity the soul whose likeness with thy soul was but its love for thee? He's still bemoaning his living state. He seems to intuit from the song the fact that she has plans to bring him to heaven with her, but he has doubts that that is ever going to really happen. He's worried that he'll never be reunited with her. And one of his main reasons for that is he doesn't feel like he has done enough to get to heaven. nothing to prove that he's worthy of going to heaven. The only good thing he says he's done is to harbor his love for her, like to love her. That's the only good thing that he's done in his life. Back to her, we too, she said, or yes, she said, will seek the groves where the Lady Mary is, with her 5 handmaidens, whose names are 5 sweet symphonies: Cicely, Gertrude, Magdalene, Margaret, and Rosalys. Circle-wise sit they, with bound locks and foreheads garlanded into the fine cloth, white like flame, weaving the golden thread to fashion the birth robes for them who are just born, being dead. He shall fear, haply, and be dumb. Then I will lay my cheek to his and tell about our love, not once abashed or weak, and the dear mother will approve my pride and let me speak. Herself shall bring us hand in hand to him, round whom all souls kneel, the clear-ranged, unnumbered heads bow with their aureoles, and angels meeting us shall sing to their citherns and their citoles. There will I ask of Christ the Lord, thus much for him and me, only to live as once on earth with love, only to be, as then a while forever now together I and he. She gazed and listened, and then said, less sad of speech than mild, all this is when he comes. She ceased. The light thrilled toward her, filled with angels in strong level flight. Her eyes prayed, and she smiled. So the first thing that she's going to do is take her in front of the Virgin Mary to see the Lady Mary, along with her handmaidens, and they have a very important job, these handmaidens and Mary. They sit in a circle and they work continually making robes for people who have just died, who are entering heaven. And her lover is going to be dumb or can't speak because he's so happy to see these sights and to be in the Virgin Mary's presence. And she will make sure that she lays her cheek next to his and reassure him and remind him of their love, because the Virgin Mary is going to approve of their union. They shouldn't be ashamed or abashed of their passion, she says. She will be so proud, in fact, Virgin Mary, that she will grant the damsel a request. Mary will take the lovers herself, hand in hand, to see Christ, and who's sitting on his throne, and he's surrounded by all the heads of the souls worshiping at his feet. And the angels will be singing while, this is her ultimate fantasy, right? For when they're reunited. And then once she has gotten an audience with Christ, she, the damsel, will ask him to allow her and her lover to live as they used to back on earth, with love only. They'll be together with love there in heaven because they only had a short period to love each other on earth, and now they're going to be able to do that for the rest of the time, or that's what she hopes will happen. But there she breaks from her dream that she's living in and kind of comes back to her lonely reality. She's back to standing and gazing there. And then she throws in that all of this is when he comes. And then, she's more deflated and disappointed than she kind of was before. Because she's, that's her dream. She's awakened from that dream. As she stops speaking, she's filled with the light of angels and heaven. Back to our lover on earth, he says, I saw her smile. But soon, their path was vague in distant spheres, and then she cast her arms along the golden barriers and laid her face between her hands and wept. I heard her tears. So here in this final stanza, the damsel's lover sees her smile, he sees her or hears her tears, but we kind of get that nothing has changed. Their path has not, nothing has been resolved. Soon their path was vague in distant spheres, and then she cast her arms along the golden barriers and laid her face between her hands and wept. And she's crying so loudly with her passion that her beloved can hear her tears. So they're not going to grant, heaven is not going to grant their request to end up to get to be together there in the end. So I guess it's a natural, like when he dies, that's when they'll be together in heaven.